Good morning, good morning, good morning. Alice, I see Alice. I see Caroline and Jessica.
Good morning, Mark. This is Dee. How are you?
Nice to,
Good morning, Peru.
it's nice to see the same faces.
Yes, it is. Returning friends, always nice.
And then there's always a few new faces as well, which is nice as well.
Morning, Mark. Morning, everyone. This is Hannah calling in from New Zealand.
Oh, Hannah.
Oh,
Good morning, Mark.
That's
So
so
I'm not going to turn my video on.
Morning, Hannah.
That's so nice, Hannah, because I had a strange feeling about half an hour ago, and I thought to myself, and I'd been seeing some pictures from a friend of mine in New Zealand. I thought, God, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody from New Zealand? And I then thought, well, that's impossible. And there you are.
Not impossible, but it does require an alarm.
Yeah. I was thinking that we're learning some great stories from New Zealand about the more beautiful world at the moment. That's why I thought it'd be nice to have somebody from New Zealand.
Well, your wish came true.
Hi from New Zealand.
Oh, more people from New Zealand, great.
Early risers.
Yeah.
Paul, you have to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Keep wishing for the good things.
Yeah, well, I think there are some great stories of leadership, mainly from female leaders in the world at the moment, and New Zealand certainly got one of those.
I heard something that it's Jacinda Ardern, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that she said on her news reading, just to remind all the children in the world that the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny are counted as essential workers, key workers. Which I thought was really sweet.
Yeah.
I see new friends, new people that we're just meeting. Hello, Sean Ryan.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. And returning people, and we got Melina from why don't you guys, everybody just welcome yourself and say where you are. Let's go do a round while we're still welcoming everybody in, and then we'll get started here. Okay, Paul? So just take yourself off of mute and just popcorn in.
Hi, I'm Shannon from Kamloops, British Columbia.
Elsie from upstate New York.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Saskatchewan, Canada.
Sean down in Austin, Texas.
Heather in the Columbia River watershed.
I'm
Mark.
Oops,
Go ahead.
I'm Carolina.
Harbor, Michigan.
Peru.
And in Newtown, Connecticut.
Dee in San Francisco.
I am Mark, a settler living on Ohlone land.
I'm Zoe in Montana.
I'm Sally in London.
Hey, Sally.
Jessica in Cleveland, Ohio.
Hi, Jessica.
Jeremy from upstate New York.
Hey, Jeremy.
I'm Melina from Alameda, California.
Hi, Melina.
Rose from London.
Rose.
Wonderful.
I see you, Mark.
I'm Paul in the Cotswolds in England. Should we get started, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's everybody. Let's.
Great.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone to our 6th episode outing for the More Beautiful World live stream, which we've been kind of calling Stories Around the Global Campfire. of the More Beautiful World our hearts know is possible. And the theme for today is really kind of reflections on the 5 weeks and the story that preceded that, because we're asking ourselves, so what's now what for More Beautiful World 24? You know, we came in with a plan that involved a live stream for 24 hours in June of 2021, and then, as the saying goes, the future arrived early. And so we have started having these conversations and sharing this. And so it's really a kind of chance for reflections on that, and just maybe a sense of what we're all kind of needing or being drawn to when we think about sharing these stories of the more beautiful world that's trying to emerge, along with many kind of futures are trying to emerge at the moment, I think. And one of the things that we've been doing during the 6 weeks is always starting with a piece of music or a performance or a poem. And Katie, I think you're going to start us off today.
Everyone. It's going to be a bit of improvisation.
That's okay. Great. Thank you so much, Katie. That was beautiful. Was that a piece of improvisation, or was that something particular?
It's a kind of on the moment feeling of a more beautiful world, and I guess how I'm feeling at the moment. And
Thank you.
Expression for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mark, have we got a ceremony, a little initiation into the call today? You're on mute, Mark.
Got myself on mute. Yeah, I think, well, the first thing is just welcoming everybody. You know, we've been on a journey together. I see familiar faces. I see new friends. I sense a lot of you have, you know, like me, been sitting, pondering, wondering. And I think that's the first sense of, you know, becoming present with each other is that of being with ourselves. And we've been placed on this journey together, as odd as it may seem. And now here we are. We've arrived at this moment of time. If I think about what we've done over this time, for those of you that have been with us on this journey, some of us for over a year, that to me has been a ceremony. It's been a ritual, a coming together, a sitting, a sharing, And that's what we've done over this last little while. And we've come to this place of nurturing our senses. And we started off with the first, in this session, the sense of discovery. And then we wandered into the sense of story, then the sense of community, and lastly, last week, the sense of initiation. All of that to me have felt like going through a process together, a wandering, a pondering. And I would just like to open it up right now to those that have been with us on the journey to share that, for those that are on the call with us now that haven't. And just your sense of where your head's at, where you're at, how you feel about this journey. Wandering the journey into the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible together. And then we'll talk about where we might go with it. But right now, just your feeling, your sense of that. And please, if you want to just raise your hand, then we can start in and share where we've each come from and how we feel now that we've gone through this initiation. Paul, I'll let you host that from there.
All right. Shannon, do you want to start? Because I saw you put your hand up.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Mark. And I want to say that again, because truly, you guys brought this together, at least from my point of view. And what I see this as being as is essential. We have to figure out where we're going before we go there. Well, we don't have to, but we stumble really badly when we don't. And I think that the way forward will reveal itself first through our imaginations. It is the tool that they have not been able to breed out of us, train out of us. They give it to us when we're children, and then they try to beat it out of us. Well, we still have our imaginations, and that is the world that I feel that we are inhabiting, the imagination. And I love being here with you guys. And so thank you so much for being a part of my world. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you so much, Shannon. Yes. So who else would like to share? We're asking ourselves, kind of, after, you know, now what isn't available to us as a platform in the way that it's been, where do we keep the MoreBeautiful.World and the MoreBeautiful.World 24 kind of space, and this idea of stories around the global campfire? How do we keep that going, and what's the kind of what do we each need, and what would we each like? So please, yeah, Vibha, have I pronounced your name correctly? I don't think we can hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Maybe your audio settings. Should we come back to you, Vibha? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think there's something on your audio settings, and we'd love to hear from you when we can. Anybody else who wants to share? Yeah, is that Dee?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Dee.
Hello. Thank you, Paul and Mark and Grace, and for coming together and creating this space. It's really powerful, and a lovely check-in. Actually, as Mark was just going through the weeks, I feel like that's how my life has been progressing, with kind of accepting this, understanding this, going deeper into all of the different aspects of this pause and this time to just stop. I had a conversation last year with my brother, and I remember saying to him, we've revisited the conversation since, but I remember saying I was really frustrated. I don't remember what the actual topic that I was frustrated in the world over, but I said, you know, what needs to happen is everything needs to just stop. And he's like, that's impossible. That literally can't happen. You know, and now a year later, we're like, whoa, kind of revisiting that. And like, it is such an amazing opportunity for us all to just, you know, those of us who have the liberty and the gift of actually pausing, and we're not sick and we're not, you know, either directly affected, but we're able to have that seclusion and retreat, and then we have a responsibility, because we've been given that gift in this timing, to really, like kind of what Shannon was just saying, this, what are we imagining, what are we envisioning, and like understanding that quantum world more than ever, that we are all feeding into that river of the next phase, and that so much is possible, and so much has been on the back burner for so long, and now those systems can really start to root in, and it will take all of us imagining that in and feeling it in our bodies, and aligning to that crown, you know, the coronavirus, right, is the crown, and the crown chakra is what it connects us to the greater, bigger picture of spirit and the universe. And you know, we have a virus there. We have a disconnect to spirit and to our bigger sense of self. So I feel like this is sort of a symbolic way that it's like waking us all up to reconnect to our, not just our global community, but all sentient beings, all the animals, the insects, microbes, the universe, all of it, you know, and really just sort of, there's so much incredible possibilities ahead. So yeah, thank you guys for creating the space and for the lovely group and all the sharings. Yeah, that's where I'm at today. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dee. Yeah, and Viva, is your audio working now?
Am I audible?
Yes, yeah, that's great.
Namaste, and
Namaste.
Thank you for this platform and opportunity. I have not been part of other gatherings of Now What. I have been doing off and on because just today I came back from isolation. I tested myself, went for a test because I was having all the symptoms of corona. And I'm sitting in India at one of the super hot spots. And through my NGO, I have been doing some food distribution work. So I was suspecting that maybe in that process, I got the infection, and I self-reported. And it has been an ordeal for 7 days, beginning on 17th evening till this morning, going through the system, the private sector, the public sector, horrible state of affairs. And finally, today I came back to my home and my report is negative. So now I'm feeling so good. And when I saw this event, I was just checking, I thought, let me go and see if I can contribute and learn something from all of you who have gathered here today for such a beautiful thing. So coming to the specific of what the question that was posed in the beginning, my response is that I think for me, it is very important to be aware of my renewed purpose. When I say renewed, it doesn't mean only in the context of COVID. It also means what I went through and what I saw very closely happening in my society, in the system, as systems response to what is happening. So in that framework, in that context, it is very important for me to revisit my purpose, what I'm going to do in the outer world, and also revisit my own internal purpose of life. Like before Corona came, one of my purposes, of the two purposes that I have in life, was to spread the joy of gratitude. And I've been doing that for the last 7 years around the globe. But I think in this context, to make this world a more beautiful place, I will also have something which is more specific in the context of some tangible beauty, spreading some tangible beauty around. So I have certain thoughts and ideas in my mind. I won't take much of the time of the group here, but I'm very clear that we must be very clear of our own internal purpose and the purpose that we are going to offer in the outer world, and how we are going to impact the outer world, whatever profession each one of us is doing, whether one is a teacher or a medical doctor or just a firefighter or a housemaker. Irrespective of that, I think it is high time that we spend some time to figure out that in addition to earning money, in addition to doing my job, what more I'm offering to the world. And I think by that kind of awareness, each one can develop a sense of interconnectedness. That is what is very much needed in the world going forward. As a society, we have lost the sense of interconnectedness. We operate in our silos, whether it's my corporation or my society. And sadly enough, in India also, that is the situation. So, because we have lost the sense of interconnectedness, we think that I alone am. I mean, I can win the whole world. That is the attitude people have at micro level and macro level. So I think we have to break that attitude, and we have to just look within, that what am I doing? How am I showing up in the world? You know, there are people who are very clear about their individual purpose, personal purpose. Like I said, I have a personal purpose, but to what extent that personal purpose is aligned to the purpose in the outer world, that is a kind of awareness which is needed. And I'm really, really, really grateful to Corona. I never shy saying that Corona has come as a blessing. There are people who have objected to me in my country, but the 3-4 interviews to media and podcasts I have given to people out of India, I have not shy in saying this. This was very much needed. This has shown us the mirror. This has shown us the reality. This has shaken us. But the sad part is that even, I can talk of my country, even now, what we were doing in the outer world, in terms of doing, speed, competition, cutthroat, we have brought all of that to our household. That is what I've seen in my country last 1 month. Very sorry to say that. But by and large, that is what people are doing. They are still not mindful of how they are misusing resources, how they are exploiting resources, how they are in their silos by making some fancy dishes and putting that up on their Facebook, forgetting that there are 100 people dying hungry every day next doors. They are still not bothered. They are still in their own world of glamour, fancy and luxury, because they have got an air conditioner in their house. They have got Netflix connection. So their world is confined to that. And they're very happy. They are still not bothered how medical doctors are struggling. They're not asking the right question to the government. I mean, they have become numb by all of this. So that is the kind of reflection and introspection and some kind of action that is required. I'm very clear, and I'm blessed that I have weaved together a team of about 15 people in last 1 month who are on this journey with me, and I'm mentoring them. And we have launched 2 projects, again, to create a beautiful world. So, and I'm thankful to the Happiness Festival and my connection with Ben, because through that, I have got some broader platform to talk about my work, to reach out to more people. So I think with this, I will pause. Thank you for listening. Really great, blessed to be part of this forum.
Well, that was a privilege to listen to you, Viba. And it sort of reminds me of, I mean, my own story and where I find myself now relative to the More Beautiful World and what's next, is that this started as an idea of a 24-hour live stream of stories of the More Beautiful World in action. So the idea was on June the 21st next year to do a live stream of just different stories from around the world of projects, initiatives, activities that essentially are manifestations, if you like, proof that the More Beautiful World already exists around us, but isn't joined up. And then what's happened is, so we've been on this journey of almost like preparing for the 21st of June 2021, which now seems a long time away. And then, you know, the virus arrives, and this idea that all of a sudden the future's here, the future that maybe we've wanted, maybe we've feared, maybe, you know, it's almost like when it arrived, I really felt like I wasn't ready for the future I've always wanted. You know, it was a bit, you know, it's like I'm not ready for the change because it brings up all the fear and anxiety. On the other hand, I've spent my life longing for, I think, a more beautiful world. And so it's now like where next? And I mainly just have no idea where next. I came, you know, there was this sense of creating this global conversation around the campfire. That's what I keep coming back to, telling ourselves stories like the one you've just shared, and stories like we've each experienced in our own lives. And I really don't know where next. I mean, in my own life, I'm sort of between worlds, because I'm very much in the corporate world. So I'm the rest of my life, I'm trying to influence that large organizations to change the way they work. So for instance, in the last week, we've launched this thing called the Work Miles movement, which is to get large organizations to set budgets of travel, you know, like they do financial budgets. In my own company, we've set 50% travel this year versus last year. And there's about 100 people in the company. And the idea is to get different organizations around the world to set their own budget of miles, and then to cascade it down the organization so that we can start to preserve, which is my hope, some of the climate benefits that we've started to experience. And already we've had people in Australia, Holland, Egypt signing up to this. And it's, so that's me trying to kind of manifest the more beautiful world in just in my life. And I really don't know where the work we're doing here goes. And, you know, and I've also lost somebody very close to me through the virus. And, you know, it's this gift has got lots of pain with it. And, you know, and I'm also aware that I'm in such a place of privilege on many levels. And then I look at people in, you know, not far away from where I live, you know, and they're on the 25th floor of a housing estate block, and they've got, you know, there's a woman with 3 kids, and she's kind of like, isolation's really, you know, it's like, and I ask myself, why these vast differences? Anyway.
I see Viva put her hand up to respond. Did you?
May I take it?
Sure.
Okay. So I would like to say 4 things in addition to and in response to what you said, Paul. First is that what you people have created in terms of there is a beautiful future possible. I think the intent matters a lot. Whether we have something concrete at this stage or not, that doesn't matter. The intention with which it has been created, that's a powerful intention. And I believe, and I do a lot of work with such things, so I can say that with utmost confidence that whatever you people have created, you may not have proper strategic plan or ideas that what will happen, but I'm sure I can foresee already that many beautiful things will pop out and emerge as streams of beautiful rivers from this initiative, this platform. That is one. My second thing is, personally in my life, I say 2 things. One is that I walk a mystical path with a practical feet. And if you will get a chance to read, I'm in the process of completing 3 of my books. So one of my books, I have talked about it, that how I walk the mystical path with a practical feet, which is about 27 stories, real life stories of my life, and how I was walking on a mystical path with a very practical fit on the earth. Added to that is, you may be aware of this quotation by Mahatma Gandhi, which says, be the change you want to see in the world. So whenever I think of any big project, any program, through my nonprofit, through my consulting work, first I apply that in my own life. So the kind of conviction and practical experience I get by doing that, then I can blow people's mind just because I've tried it in my life, and then I have data, I have ideas, I have got some experiments as results, and then I just create a big program and I go around the world and offer that. Now, the last point I would like to make, which you said very beautifully about the travel thing, I just want to share that I have been doing this Joy of Gratitude workshop globally for the last 5 years. I was to be in the US in June for a month. I was there for the last 2 years, and this year also they were going to host me, and I travel the entire country. People host me and I just offer that as a gift. In India, I started doing that for the last 2 years, and I tied my road trip with that. And when I tied my road trip with that, so the thing was that I have a little car, which is a gas version, which creates pollution, which leaves a carbon footprint. So when I started doing that, I started feeling a little guilty that yes, I'm doing this travel with the cause because I want to promote the joy of gratitude amongst people and random acts of kindness amongst people in India. But on the other hand, I'm creating carbon footprint. So I thought of two things. One was, which I started doing. One was that suppose I'm traveling from New Delhi to say Mumbai by road. These are the two big cities in India. So I'm using their names for the larger audience here to understand. So, and suppose in the process through my carbon calculator, I am leaving a carbon footprint of the value of say 1000, value of X or 1000. So the moment I reach an education institution or a place which is hosting my Joy of Gratitude workshop for their team, for their teachers, for their students, after my workshop, I have arranged saplings, and together we are planting saplings to offset the carbon footprint that I already have through my calculator. So maybe 1000 miles covered equal to this much of carbon footprint, and to offset that, you plant 1100 saplings. So I'm trying to do that. Added to that is that sometimes that becomes very cumbersome. So I also want to give a message to people. So now I am hoping that very soon, when Corona crisis is over, I will be able to buy a hybrid vehicle or an e-vehicle or something like that. And I will be using that to do this road trip in India to spread the joy of gratitude. And which is also to make this world a much more beautiful place. That is the whole idea.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and who, Caroline? Mark, I'll unmute you. Hi, Caroline.
I'm calling in from the Sacred Valley in Peru in a small farming village called Waran.
Wow.
We've been in mandatory quarantine for 8 weeks now. We're forced to stay in the house, all of us. And for me, that's been a time that first and foremost, the first thing that I did was just go into prayer and pray and do offerings to the land the way that our maestros have taught me. I've been adopted into a ceremonial family for the last 8 years here. And so instead of watching the news, instead of watching statistics, instead of listening to all the videos and the things that came out, my first response was to go inward and pray with the mountain. And something that really interesting that came out of that was there was a kind of a conflict that happened in our community where the locals, the way that they protected their community was to begin to put barricades so that no other people could come in. And the foreigners that live here, which is not very many, but they didn't understand. And because there was a break in communication, they thought that they were being shut in and that there was an angry mob. And so there's this really interesting dynamic that happened. And that called me to like kind of look out my window and like step out and go and meet with the mayor. And the community ended up voting me as the community leader between the foreigners and the locals. And because I've been here for so long, I had an understanding that this was a method of protection, not as a method of like conflict. And so anyways, what ended up happening from that is that we found out that our neighbors far up the glacier didn't have food because they're not able to come down into the towns because we're in quarantine and there's no jobs right now. And so the foreigners all came together and were able to sponsor emergency food baskets for around 200 families so far. And so what came out of that, the reason I'm sharing that is because for me, that link is doing the interpersonal work and really tuning in, being able to look outside the window and understand where there's a gap in the community, and then really stepping forward in a responsible way in the community. And actually now this is like, I've had a project here for many years, really to help shift the agricultural out of chemicals and monoculture into organic regenerative. And so this crisis actually has made that happen. Now that I'm in contact with all the leaders by them voting me into their council, they're within the community, they're speaking about food security, they're speaking about intercommunal trade routes, they're speaking about intercultural community now, and including the foreigners in this, and understanding that the dynamic of the community is different now than it was in the past, and that we're all a benefit to one another. And so we're talking about rotating crops and understanding that at the top of our mountain at the watershed, there's trout and alpaca and potatoes, whereas in this microclimate, we've got vegetables and fruits. And then they were like, and then the foreigners, they bring medicines and therapy. So we have everything we need here. And so I just wanted to share that as a short little piece that we're documenting this process right now to be able to share with people around the world how Andean communities are stepping up in community resiliency and food security, and just really showing this incredible model forward. And so for me, that interpersonal work and questioning where there's a gap in the community and stepping forth in that. And now I will be creating, our livelihood and our land is going to be sculpting around that need now, really understanding the best way that our land, our food, our medicines can be beneficial to the greater community, and then documenting that process so that we can support other communities out in the world to be understanding how Andean communities have always been really resilient. Gracias. So for me, that's how we're looking to creating a more beautiful world from a blank slate that we all have right now.
Caroline, that was so inspiring and so beautiful. And I love that idea of almost spotting the gaps in community, because it feels to me like one of the things that's been happening for everyone is that you've seen either the strength or the fragility of your community. And I think one of the things certainly in the UK that people have really been surprised by is the strength of new levels of community and connection. And yeah. So who'd like to share your, Melina? Mark will just unmute you. You're going to, yeah, great. Thank you, unmuted, Melina.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just want to connect to that thought about the clean slate, because that's been on my mind. I very much cleansed, and when we think of that expression, usually that has something to do with like a guilty conscience, that we can clean our sins away, but what I've been feeling is that my story that I have lived with my entire life has been cleared. And it's a really good thing, because I feel as if the story that I was holding on to involved sins that were committed against me. And those sins have been cleansed. So I'm no longer feeling burdened by things that have happened to me. I feel more connected to myself and more connected to my source of power and actual happiness, and a sense of joy and a sense that I really want to live. And I've never really felt like that. I mean, I've always felt this joy inside me, but it struggled with the story. And now that I've been released, so I feel free to write a new story about who I am and how I can serve and what my purpose is. And I'm filled with gratitude that I will be able to really live my life with purpose and meaning and serve other people in a way that's just really meaningful for me. So that's what I want to share. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Melina. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about purpose today, finding purpose, discovering purpose. That's one of the things I'm jotting down notes. Yeah. Who else would like to share your hopes for this More Beautiful World 24 and your own story? And
I see Mark Wagon.
Yep. Hi, Mark.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been kind of seeing this evolution coming for quite a while, and this being one of the tipping points that causes a great deal of connection. I'm reminded of a couple of things. First of all, that the Berkana Institute came up with this beautiful diagram that shows civilizations that peak and then decline. And in this case, it's based on the as Charles would say, you know, the story of separation that is the main cause of the decline, when the old story is based on separation. And even though they've tried to move on to the internet to draw this, it's still the words that come out are of separation. But at the same time that this arc of civilization is happening, there's been a dropout or drop-off from those who saw the decline coming, that saw the extractive resource use, the inequality, which has a huge impact on society. And they dropped out and started creating a new model. So there was an evolution already happening at the same time as this one was peaking, this one was getting started, and then it comes up. And then we have this linking from the old, they call it the hospice or transition, people that are in the old story that see the new story and build a bridge to the new story. Now, how this happens is this is how it's connecting. Paul Hawken talked about a lot of in Blessed Unrest about all of these groups working on, you know, social justice and environmental justice and indigenous justice. All of these organizations that were separate and started finding themselves via the internet, but haven't coalesced in a coherent model yet with all of these beautiful solutions that we're going to try to represent here in More Beautiful World. The idea of what's happened with the meetings that have been happening all over the world that were physical meetings where people gathered and discussed some of these beautiful solutions and worked on implementing some of those beautiful solutions. They still have those meetings, but now since they're having to do them virtually, it's opening it up to other groups that have been following, loosely, and now can participate in those meetings. They're not only live Zoom calls, but they're recorded Zoom calls. So we can actually see the sharing and the amazing stuff that they're coming up with, right? And that connectedness is a synergistic connectedness where we see that, oh, we can work with them. We can work with them. Oh, this is a perfect fit, and that builds way more than the sum of the parts. And there were already millions of beautiful solutions out there that are connecting. So I find myself, with meeting conflicts at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, because that's when they're meeting in Australia, or that's when they're meeting, on the other side of the planet. So it's just wonderful to see that this is happening and to represent it, where we can showcase all of these beautiful solutions. I think of, the launch of Seeds, this, new economic framework and governance framework that is incentivizing regenerative acts, and creating their own currency so that we don't depend on any fiat government creating the currency and controlling it. There's so many of these brilliant solutions. I've been trying to feature them for the last 3 years on a Facebook group called the Conscious Cafe. And if you stroll through any of those, it's on Facebook, it's called Conscious Cafe A2 for Ann Arbor, where I hosted the physical version, which is now going virtual eventually. I'm picking a platform as we speak. But the idea that this evolution of brilliant ideas combined with art and music, and it's just a beautiful time. And this may not be the only tipping point that's necessary to bring this about. But I'm glad we've moved it up a year, because it doesn't hurt to take advantage of amazing technologies that are available to us that heal each sector of society. And yes, I'm reminded also of Joanna Macy's work and the work that reconnects, the holding actions that we may also have to take. But at the same time, the Gaian structures that we need to implement, the infrastructure, which is these new network platforms like HoloChain and Threefold and others that are building new peer-to-peer networks that allow us to put these beautiful solutions on. And then the shifting consciousness. That's also part of this. And I've been kind of working from the shifting consciousness back. And I sometimes neglect the holding actions that are still necessary, but I see them, I feel them, right? That they are necessary. I wear my mask around our community, just to give the seniors a sense of security so they're not stuck in anxiety and fear all the time, right? Which is not meant to be a chronic condition. So we make these allowances that are selfless and not selfish. So that's it for now.
Thank you so much, Mark. Yeah, and can I selfishly ask Hannah at 4 a.m. in New Zealand to share something? Yeah, I'm being selfish just because I've been thinking about New Zealand today. You're unmuted, Hannah.
No, she's not on mute. She's got some garbled audio issue.
No, yeah, okay. We can't quite hear you, Hannah, so we'll leave that for the moment. Thanks.
I'd love to follow up on what Mark just offered.
Yep, hi, Ben.
Yeah, so first, let me say that, to me, in terms of gifts or just what I'm noticing now, I'm just so appreciative for the work that you've done, Paul and Mark and Catherine and Rose and others to bring this series of calls together as part of the Now What Global Gathering. There's been a real evolution, evolution in that gathering over the 4 iterations now that we've gone through since we began a year ago. And in this one, through these engagement streams, there's been, a new level of sharing, of co-creation of the space, and the set of engagement streams of which this is one of, I don't know, maybe 12 or more, really provided some of the essential structure for what we've done in the context. And it's so nice to see the mix of people who've been in other calls, as well as people that just came in through this space and the invitations you put out, and the interweaving and the cross-pollinating that's happening just really warms my heart. And I'm so grateful for what you've done, for what the space you've held, and for everyone that's come to participate. I do want to respond a little bit to what Mark was just saying. I too was very influenced by the 2 loops model that Berkana developed, that he referred to, of sort of hospicing the old while we midwife the new, and then reading Charles's books where he talked about the new story. And I've spent 10 years really sort of steeping myself in that whole set of frameworks. And I was quite struck, maybe astonished even, to see that Meg Wheatley, who was central to developing that model, wrote a book in late 2012, So Far From Home, where she basically said she doesn't think that's going to happen anymore. The new paradigm, that more beautiful world, she doesn't believe in it. She thinks we've missed our chance. That islands of sanity amidst a sea of collapse, that's kind of the framework she used, that's the task of leadership, is to create those islands. And I noticed others, that this strain of conversation has grown. We have the deep adaptation folks, inspired by Jem Bendel's paper, a university professor in the UK, and many others. And I'm not here to say who's right or wrong. Joanna Macy, who Mark also referred to, says, if anybody tells you the great turning is going to happen, or that they know that it isn't, don't believe either of them, because no one really knows. And I also think there's a lot of intersection between what we might do generatively as leaders in either of those scenarios, or in something in between. That particularly comes down to human connections and community, this art of being more, being fully human in a time of crisis that we talk about in Now What. That often has to do with our local communities and more local sourcing of food and water and energy, and knowing our neighbors, and co-creating together. So all that still feels like powerful work that calls to me and to others. And I'd like to think some people have started to name Now What as a sort of a virtual global village, and it's lovely to hear that being named, because I had thought about that's not an accident, but I haven't used that language. So to see that what has manifest here is actually showing up for people in that way is really quite gratifying. I'll just end by noting that, not to pull anyone away from this call, but if Joanna Macy's work intrigues you, if you have not experienced it, one of the masters, one of her top students, and a woman who's helped care for her over the past 10 years, Lydia Violet Haratunian, is a colleague and a partner in Now What. And she's offering a regular series of active hope support group calls where they do some of the work that reconnects practices that Joanna helped develop. And the next one starts in 4 minutes. It's on the Now What calendar, and she's really quite skilled. They happen every week at 2 different times too. So if you stay here and miss it, you can still find that at other times. So again, my great gratitude. Thanks all.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for. I'd just like to say how much I've appreciated you creating this platform for us to kind of introduce More Beautiful World 24 and sort of experiment, and it's been surprising and wonderful kind of experience. Yeah, thank you. Who'd like, oh, Catherine, yeah. Yep, you're on
Hi, everybody. I jumped on a little late, so I'm hoping I'm not going to repeat anything that anyone's already said. But I think what I want to share about my thoughts and feelings on the More Beautiful World really focuses in on story. I've been quite moved and inspired by the stories that I've heard so far from Peru and from India. Imagine that. And you know, as part of the group of people who've been meeting since we met with Charles and Esselin just a little bit over a year ago to envision this idea of a more beautiful world and what that looks like. For me, what it has always felt like is I feel inspired to be in service to the stories that will connect us, or interbeing, I think would be a word that Charles might use. But as a result of conducting this kind of beautiful experiment over the past 6 weeks, where people come and talk about what this initiation might mean to them, what this pause, what they might discover. For myself, what I've discovered is that there is a community, and it is a community that inspires growth. While I am academically completely immersed in getting a PhD on a topic that's a little bit unknown, in this group, I have felt completely held and inspired to step farther out into my story of bringing people back to remembering that we have an unlimited resource at our disposal, which is our dreams. And so I'm a dream researcher, and I talk about that all the time to anybody who will listen to me. And now I have come to understand, well, everybody's dream, like literally every man, woman, and child on the planet is dreaming, and they might want to talk about it too. And so the part that I've really stepped into that I want to play as far as wherever this beautiful experiment goes is with this understanding that the stories that we share are inspiring to everyone else and are actually constructing the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And so I just want to stand and claim my place in as a listener. I want to listen to the stories. As a gatherer, I want to help gather the stories, your stories, and the stories of the unheard who are creating at this very moment the more beautiful world that's possible. And I want to invite anyone who has a story and a belief in their heart about the more beautiful world to share and to participate and to know that it's important and that it matters and that we're growing each other. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. We have Claire with her hand up.
Thank you. Catherine, I'm really glad I got to hear you share that. Because you know how when we hear other people say something, sometimes it reminds us of a way that we see something of value, but perhaps something about how they say it brings it forward in a very alive kind of way. So when I heard you mention dreams, I segued to the imagination. And I believe that our imaginations are the key to all of our happiness as well as our sadness. And the way I work with my imagination is by the kind of relating I do to the planet, to all aspects of the planet, and to humans, so humans as of the planet. And I do it through sound, music and sound, and storytelling through sound, and sound healing, which is very ambient, so beyond story, more into the cosmology of sound, really, as a connector to life. And as an artist, I created a model of consciousness from a download. It took about a year and a half to turn it into something online, but that's called dynamic emergence, and it's really about how novelty arises and how the way we bring ourselves to any moment influences what can happen next. And it's an exciting thought to me, the idea that there's really nothing that's fixed, and that I can change what I'm experiencing and potentially how other people vision for themselves or for communities. That newness, that ability to be in deep connection and to transform our state of consciousness by being aware of each other, to me that's so precious. It's so precious. And I know we tend to look at that as a mindfulness practice, like I'm thinking right now, well, that's mindfulness, you know, noticing, netty. But for me, I think it feels a bit more than that, if there is such a thing as a bit more than mindful. And it is that thing about, I'm full on Libra. I've got Libra all over my chart. So for me, I see you, Shannon. For me, everything's about relationship. And I even dive into the conflicts, because when I dive in there with the other person, if they're willing, however uncomfortable it might be, the beautiful intimacy that can arise after, when the fizziness fades and there's that calm after the storm, I feel like that has to be in there too, like not being averse to the difficulties, not thinking that if something's uncomfortable that it must be wrong, but staying tuned into our hearts, our bodies, our presence, and always listening for impulses and suggestions and the whisper, Rumi's whisper. So I put a link in the chat to one of my sound meditation pieces. It's 11 minutes, so feel free, please enjoy it at some point. And if anyone wants to learn more about dynamic emergence, then just message me and I'll give you my email. So all the work we do here, everybody, has value and is needed. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't be obsessing about it and gifting it and sharing it. So there it there it is. So this is a shout out to our most beautiful imaginations, and we've been gifted with those, and I love hearing how we're using them. Thank you for this space.
Great. Thank you, Claire. And I love that idea of the imagination. I think it was you, Shannon, who shared that, the nation of imagine. Yeah. And we're going to hear from Katie, but I'm just going to read out what Hannah, 4 a.m. New Zealand time, wrote in the chat panel, just because she wasn't able to come off audio. And it kind of reminded me about the difference between my sort of positive outlook and also the kind of realities of what we face in the world around us. She said, I'm definitely stuck on a more beautiful world after our country came out of strict lockdown yesterday, and the whole country had to be put into traffic management plans for all the people queuing up for McDonald's and KFC, takeaway only. The queues were hours wait for fast food, all chugging pollution out while they wait. Weird and sad how to be out of lockdown, a world of cycling and pedestrians and quiet roads. So it's kind of almost like the more beautiful world is more present while we're in lockdown, when everything's quieter. And I'm noticing there's a little bit of me kind of fearful of when we get back to whatever we get back to. It's kind of like there's a lot of that I'm not really looking forward to. There are some parts of it that I'm really looking forward to, like seeing my lovely daughter Rose, who I haven't seen physically for 8 weeks, giving her a hug. That would be very, very nice, but the rest of it I'm not sure about. Katie.
Hi everyone. gosh, there's just so much now in my head. I'm like, everyone's just made such amazing points that I'm just like, I don't even know where to start. Yeah, it started with I think Catherine started speaking about dreams, and it's funny when you started going into I literally had a download moment, and it was into a dream that I had last night, and it kind of, I don't know, they kind of come through kind of like psychically, almost like I feel them throughout the day, but I'm not quite sure about the interpretation of what they mean. And yeah, you talked about your thesis, and I actually had a dream last night where I was panicking because I had an 18,000 word thesis that I needed to complete by the next day, which is classic me at uni. And I was freaking out, and all of my friends had done it, and I still didn't know what to write about. And everyone else was saying, oh yeah, no, I've edited mine and I've got mine sorted and everything is, you know, all perfect. And I was like, you know, I funny enough, I wasn't talking about this, but I was freaking out inside. I wasn't expressing how I was feeling. I just knew in myself that I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what the story was. I didn't know how to express it. And yeah, and I actually it's strange, it's weird to think about it now because I'm still struggling to interpret these dreams. But I guess I came up with a title that was Spiritual versus Human. And it was about like how to navigate your emotions within life at the moment, and how to feel like you can actually talk about them without them being I don't know, I guess rejected or not appreciated or not connecting with people. And I actually think that resonates so much with what my last few years have been. I had a spiritual awakening, which you know, it was almost like a breakdown as well. It was a breakdown and a spiritual awakening all at the same time. And yeah, and I was so stuck in that experience because it was so enormous and like out of this world, transcendental. There aren't words for it. And I've been struggling the last 2 years trying to navigate what it's all meant. And yeah, and what Claire said as well about the consciousness and like working with frequencies, and working with visceral things like sound that actually we feel it in our bodies. That's when, I guess, that's what started this whole kind of experience and interest. And I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I just want to appreciate, thank you so much for everyone being here. And that's where I'm at. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing that. So, Sean.
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, I speak to you from Austin, Texas, in my garage kind of studio spot where my wife is inside with 5 boys, which we have 3 step boys for me and 2 little ones are mine. And so that's always a journey unto itself. They're like from 16 to 7 months. So it's often like the evolution of man. Myself as part of that graph, you know, our behaviors are, you know, and so it's been interesting to be with them. And also, I guess in the beginning of this, So my wife also, and it's doing all these things and doing schoolwork now, has a lactation breastfeeding company, and it began as her own practice, but expanded into several employees kind of in the hospital contract. And so it's pretty remarkable what she's been working with moms having babies and showing symptoms, just a lot of interesting frontline information coming from the hospitals. So I'm grateful that she's out there and kind of trying to support there, and she covers me while I come. I think my initial reaction was to sort of archive the experience. I had recollections of kind of past events and wanted to keep track of the narrative, and sort of have a book tucked away in the library that chronicled this time as the world began to change. So it was partially looking back, and then I kind of came upon you all and found the path to look forward. So I thank you very much for that. It's really been something a very active. I've found my activities based on looking through the work and the writings and thinking of the future world. So there was two things I wanted to share. One was, I wasn't going to share, but this was going back to Catherine had mentioned, kind of the assignment from last week was about dreams. And so I did sort of soon after the call, something that happened, I just kind of ran with it. So I'll share that. And then then there's one more little thing which just kind of came up yesterday, and maybe speaks more to what a lot of people are saying in this difficult place to really put into reality. So quickly, yes, soon after the call last week, a snake, I'm in Texas and snakes are around, and I was out by the trash can and there was a snake. So this is King Snake. King Snake, the repairs of creation bring joy and light and hope and faith and pardon and love to our neighbors and to ourselves. Enter then, King Snake, to lie down in the lavender. Inside your eyes, the hard-mited stone of underground pools of an underground bathhouse, through archway and another archway, from smooth to rougher and coarser rock, envelops the archways deeper and tougher and tight. King Snake, this morning, this afternoon, awaken the ivy hanging from a tree. We're stacking sand as the sun goes down. The skeleton rider rodeo rocking on the skeleton horse. It's humid on this liminal Tuesday. We're swinging on a swing by the lantana and Indian paintbrush. 3 stones in a silver cup, dandelion eyes. Crickets came as electricity last night, like a dense 3D port screen, the air all hashtaggy, grainy, and wired. Then they must have fell inside some dream ravine, gone. Sunset sun now shining through a yellow flag, quarantine haze, dragon fruit rays, yellow flag the rest, humanity the vessel. Yellow splotches on its rat black back, mighty, mighty, mighty King Snake. Mr. King Snake, hello. Lie down in the lavender, welcome into this paused dust of this dream. So yeah, just trying to observe the things that come. And finally, I think it has been a roller coaster. Everybody's, thank you all for sharing the work that you've been doing and the process. And I think I, for one, came to a point sort of yesterday, and similar to, is it Hannah from New Zealand, talking about opening up and maybe this feeling of anxiety that we're not ready, or, that it has been for myself, and with awareness of struggles of others, that it's been grateful for the time and the opportunity and the realization that, like, now we have a chance to set, to set the course right. And then, you sort of encounter some struggles. I know Charles's essay talked a lot about control and the totalitarian ideas of control, and I sort of related it to myself and saying, okay, there's things you cannot control, and how important that is. And so I sort of was down in a despairing place, and in the process of trying to archive history and leave a story behind for my children, I turned to look at them and say, maybe they hold the secret to the more beautiful world, as it's, going to be theirs. And my 3-year-old son is named Nalu, which is a Hawaiian word for go with the flow or wave. And the younger son is named Zuri, which is after the guardian angel Zuriel, who's the angel of harmony. So it was, anyway, this is something I offered up to them. May you have what you find. May you make of what we left you into your own design. Never to surrender, even if you get the chance. Anything is more beautiful than the dangers on the run. You can't run away from yourself. Maybe we paused long enough, closed our eyes to the sun. Enough hearts feeling hearts enough to unravel and regard and pardon. Get you on a horse to come through the rough, then follow the river, go with the flow. When the river runs dry, follow the footprints. Your name means wave, and your name angel of harmony. The beat in your heart is the music of discovery. That's all it seemed to, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. And I think your poetry was amazing. Thanks. Yeah, Shannon, you're putting your hand up.
I am. Thank you so much, Paul. Oh, poetry and dreams, and this is very rich, and I want to take just a couple of seconds to appreciate all that's being offered here. It's a rich place to be. Definitely part of the more beautiful world. But what has inspired me to speak is the dream, the mention of dreams, Catherine. A dream that I had, one of very few dreams that I've had that I remember. This liminal dream, at the end of it, I am asked a very, very strong, pointed question. And I'm being interviewed, or people are asking me questions. And the question that they're asking that stumps me and has changed my life since that dream is, how did you get here? And so I have worked to create poetry and writings and imaginings and speakings and all centered around what has happened in my life. And so a lot of what I do is centered on me, but all of what we create is a composite of individual stories. And to be able to share our individual stories in a powerful way, I think, is what we're here for. Thank you for listening.
Shannon, beautiful. Tina.
Yes, I'm so inspired. I love your poetry, Sean, and I'm also from Texas, so I thought I would segue. I'm near Houston, and one thing I've noticed in the news, when the oil went minus $36 a barrel, I mean, I have friends and acquaintances around here whose families are in extraction. They're in oil and gas. And there's fear there, of coming out of this. What will the future hold? So I'm trying to hold all of, everyone's, fears as well as hopes. And I love the idea that we don't know, like nobody knows. I wondered if people had read, it was going around, I saw it on Facebook, a Medium piece about get ready for the big gaslighting. I forget the author, but he talks about, it's on Medium, that when this is kind of over, that watch for the media to basically say, oh, you didn't see those pictures of coyotes on the Golden Gate Bridge, or you didn't see the air pollution clearing up. Things weren't quieter, you know, during the lockdown. Basically, an advertising blitz that's going to say, okay, you know, it's safe to go out and buy now, so buy, you know, this is what, you know, the guy is saying. And my thought was, well, maybe the antidote to being gaslit is this, is stories, people sharing their imagination, people sharing their dreams, and just community. Because each, you know, person that spoke, I've something I can like resonate with. And I'll just say to end, I'm in one of my Zoom things that I've been doing is a creative writing group from the church that I attend. And I haven't written in 3 weeks or 4, I haven't written a thing. It's almost like I have the ultimate writer's block because I'm trying too hard. So I'm inspired here to just sort of let go and maybe listen more to my dreams and just, I don't know, just be. This is a time for really just being with. So I've enjoyed these gatherings, and I just appreciate the links to further work and further readings and further exploration. So gratitude to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Zoe.
I know we're running out of time, so I'll try and be quick, but I just wanted to say that I feel like today was super powerful, and everything that everyone had to say really sits with me, and I resonate with a lot of it. I wanted to say to Sean that your poetry is really beautiful, and everything that you were saying sat with me so deeply because it honestly reminds me of what my dad has instilled in me. And he named me Zoe and my sister Sophia, Zoe meaning life and Sophia meaning wisdom. And they've always said to us, life gives us wisdom, and that's sat with me forever, and it always will. And he's also instilled in me everything that has brought him to this point. And with you saying that you are leaving behind everything for your kids, that is everything my dad has told me and my sister, which has brought me to here, actually. Originally coming onto this call to support my dad and dive deeper into everything that I hear him talking about has led me to all these amazing people, and I'm just super grateful for it. Something that I just want to share, as my state of Montana is now coming out of the stay-at-home order, and I actually just had my first day back at work yesterday. I do hair, and the hair industry is super fast, super busy. Cram as many people as you can in a day and just keep going. It's been really a blessing, everything that's gone on, because we've been able to completely wipe our schedules clear and start over as a salon, as our team has decided, and to kind of keep this slow pace that quarantine has been into our work life, where we're all only working 3 days a week. We're starting later. We are only taking a couple clients a day as we're transitioning into coming out of quarantine, and we're hoping to keep that schedule with us and that slow pace with us, to be able to instill kind of this slowness and this calmness, so that we don't just like dive right back into busy, and hopefully that'll stay with us within whatever's to come, and just to remind us all that it's okay to be slow and it's okay to calm down within our work life and within our personal life as we kind of get out of this stillness. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. But thank you everyone for everything you've shared. It's been a really awesome hour and a half.
Thank you, Zoe, my daughter. What can I say to that? Other than Sean, you get it. You're being a dad is quite a thing. Rose and Paul are here. I know there's a lot of parents here. To take Zoe's cue, we are coming up to the end of our scheduled time, but please, I'm going to stay on the line. I'm sure others will. We're here to listen deeply, but we're also here to imagine where this all leads to as far as MBW 24 and sitting together and how this will evolve and who will partake in helping us keep the flame alive. And we're going to keep that open through this conversation, through our website, and whatever else we can conjure up. So I invite you all to continue the dialogue by staying connected through the email list that we have. But right here, right now, I'm not saying goodbye. If anybody needs to leave, you're welcome to. I'd love to hear more. We'd love to hear more about how you imagine we could imagine this going forward. If you need to go, until next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. You're welcome to pop in and take yourself off of mute and say goodbye or whatever it is that you'd like to do. One last thought.
To all those who are going forward in their days and in their lives, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful to have you in my field, in my world.
Yeah, thank you. And I what occurs to me, inspired by you, Zoe, is that as we transition, that we transition slowly. And I've already decided I'm going to work less days. And I love this idea of, and I'm going to bring that idea into the corporate world, the idea of transitioning slowly. I think they'll like it.
I think we've kind of been, like, Montana is going by phases. So every 2 weeks it goes into a new phase, and we're in phase 1 right now. And it's, I mean, there's things that are opening up that I think people will definitely take advantage of and kind of go right back into old habits. But yeah, I think it's definitely super important just to bring this slow ease back into our day-to-day life and not to forget what we're coming out of, and that, you know, the virus isn't going anywhere. And I don't know, I think people are kind of taking it all, this time, for granted, and to find the positives of it and find ways to incorporate it into our day-to-day lives is super important. Yeah.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Hi. So I've devoted my life to 2 main things. One is storytelling, mostly in the form of filmmaking, documentary films, and spiritual self-knowledge, inward looking. And I just want to say that I find so much more hopefulness now than I did 6 months ago, because this pattern interrupt has caused us to question the things that we took as givens in our societies and cultures. And I find myself not having much in the way of fear because of the vast space of possibility that we now exist in. And I also really see a parallel between what we're going through as a species and spiritual awakening, where there are these moments of great dilation, where we go beyond our identity as an individuated self, and they're followed by contraction, where we go back to what is habitual and comfortable and safe, but also is much smaller. And so I feel really confident that there will be contractions going forward, and also that they are birth contractions in service of a greater space opening, and that how we tell new stories is how we birth ourselves into that new space. And yeah, I just want to share that because I feel so wonderful about this time. Every day I wake up and I just feel a collective spaciousness that's so beautiful to me, and I'm very aware of the people who are suffering and struggling as well, and my compassion is very much with them. But on a larger scale, I have so much faith and trust in how this moment feels to me in terms of possibility, and how we're closer to being able to change course than we've been in my lifetime. So, and I'm really grateful for groups like this one who are actively reinventing the next story. So thank you all for allowing me to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Jeremy, for the work that you're doing. It's yeah, I mean, I've various reflections. One is every morning I go out very early and have seen the very first days when there was nobody on the road. It was silent, and it was the last few days. I feel in shock because I see the traffic on the road, and I'm like, wait, it's too soon. We're going to forget already. We need this time. We need to be in this liminal space a little bit longer. But at the same time, I too carry, and have for a very long time, a sense of hope. And that's come through just getting to know others, that they also carry that. So thank you for carrying that. Yeah. Anybody else? Hannah, it's about time to wake up in New Zealand.
I have to go start homeschooling.
Catherine.
But, I just want to thank everybody. I'm filled with gratitude for being able to be here. And until next time.
All right.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you all. If there's nobody else, then we'll say.
So gifted by I feel so gifted by your poetry. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, so beautiful. I'm going to start my day as well.
Okay.
Hope everyone has a good, what's today, Tuesday?
Thursday. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep an eye out for your box. We'll keep connected.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so
Gratitude.
Bye, Dad.
Thank you.
Love you.
I just put my microphone on.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing call. Very, very grateful.
Beautiful world.
Goodbye.
Oh no, hello.
I woke up.